Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here, and man, I have a big one for you today, my friends. Of course, you may have heard the introduction during a speech by King Charles of the digital ID. If you haven't, you can hear him explain it right here.
My ministers will also proceed with the introduction of digital ID that will modernize how citizens interact with public services.
One-on-one basic overall arching system which controls every aspect of your life and every government system, every financial institution, your free speech, your food, your water, your shelter, everything. And this is a major statement by the king, though not shocking considering the king, when he was prince in 2020, helped introduce the Great Reset at the World Economic Forum. This is something that I want to go into because there's so much more to this. And of course, I've gone into digital IDs to exhaust for over a decade. But of course, things are growing fast in this digital age. And of course, this also includes digital IDs in the United States, in Canada, and through private institutions, masquerading as private institutions anyway, as they force you through the banking system as well. They want to ration your food. They want to ensure that you are unable to make your own choices in life. You will be subject to the new system of governance, which will involve complete control by the technocratic powers that be. I'm going to go into this and more today, my friends. Before I do, I urge people to check the real-world solutions in the description below, heavensharvest.com/wham, W-A-M, where you can get 25% off plus free shipping on long-term storable foods that are non-GMO. There's organic kits, heirloom seeds, water filtration and storage, and books on how to get started. There's freeze-dried food. Use code WHAM, that's W-A-M. That's 25% off. This is an absolute amazing deal that you cannot find anywhere else, and this is not the crap that you get at Home Depot. This is stuff that includes actual organic food and large serving sizes. This is how you ensure you don't fall prey to the Great Reset. So please take this very seriously today and get on this. I also want to talk about Medicamentum Authentica Shilajit, which of course is by Dr. Andrew Kaufman. If you use code WHAM10, W-A-M-10 at the link in the description below, you will get 10% off on unmatched potency, ethically sourced and harvested at 16,000 plus feet in the Himalayas. This Shilajit is absolutely amazing. It's rigorously tested for all the toxic stuff, heavy metals, fillers, etc. You get a bonus pre-priming protocol to accelerate and amplify your results, and you'll get a 35-day try it, feel it, love it guarantee. I want to quickly show you guys this here in front of me. I have the box that Dr. Andrew Kaufman sent me of Shilajit, and it's a beautiful box because when you open it, you get a little message from him, as well as, let me pull out the main box here. Really well-made product, my friends. Let me just grab this out of here. There we go. This is pretty cool. So you see it's like a little drawer. You can pull it out like this, and you got this really high-end Shilajit in here, plus a little spoon and everything. It's really, really cool. I love it. It's a lot fancier than I was expecting. It's a nice, nice product. They put a lot of quality down to the details of the box, which is always a good sign. But I urge people to go and check that out. That's code WHAM10, W-A-M-10, over at that Medicamentum Authentica Shilajit link in the description. Now, let's get into this, my friends. Okay, so there's a lot to break down today. And you know me, I get into the deep details of things, and I'm a little OCD about this. If you see the amount of tabs I have at the top of my page, I know my video is over top of some of it. It's extensive. I have about, let's see, 20 tabs to go into. Why? Because they are sourcing material for the things I need to tell you, and I want people to see that this is real. This is a real thing that's happening right now, as King Charles says this once again. I'll play the 13-second clip again.
My ministers will also proceed with the introduction of digital ID that will modernize how citizens interact with public services.
Again, with public services. They already have a system in the UK right now where they're having low carbon zones where you can't drive private vehicles unless you want to pay a bunch of money. They're forcing people onto public transit. That means that the government always knows where you are all the time, and you are completely dependent on their systems, which are usually by design inefficient. This is all part of the Great Reset agenda, which King Charles, alongside people like Klaus Schwab, introduced back in 2020. Again, the whole concept of this is a global governance system that is based in the idea of course, technocracy. Now, the King's speech paves way for digital ID, it says here. The speech outlined plans for a digital access service bill, establishing a legal framework for the use of digital identity, which has received mixed responses. Yes, because of course, we have already heard this from people like Keir Starmer, and there was a lot of public pushback, obviously not enough. But alas, what do they do this based on? It's sweeping the UK legislative agenda. What do they do this based on? Starmer's revival of digital ID sparks fury at home and abroad. This is from today, May 14th, because there's a new push in this direction once again. This is all over mass migration, which the government itself was responsible for. It enforced this system. It helped destroy other countries. It helped offer welfare for people to come to their country. And then once it caused culture wars and people started fighting against each other, and it was obvious that this was bad for the culture in general, they then say, okay, well, we'll help you get rid of them to some degree while still throwing you in prison for daring to ask questions about these cultures. We will continue to arrest you for your Facebook post, part of the social credit system that's being launched, but we will do something about them. We will enforce digital IDs for them. And if we enforce digital IDs for them, then of course people will be satisfied, because therefore these people will have to prove what they do. They will have to have this digital ID and be followed and tracked and traced. It's like this is the modus operandi for everyone. It's a Trojan horse, obviously. So they're like, hey, look, we're doing something about the problem we caused in the first place by actually creating another problem that's going to affect the individual walking down the street in London, in Carlisle, in Derby, in Manchester, in Liverpool, in Leeds, wherever it might be. And in Oxford, where I had reported on the 15-minute city development, which is all part of the same agenda, on the ground for about a month back in 2022. And it's extensive how far they've gone with that since then. In fact, they're doing it all over the world, which I've reported on. But anyway, when they're rolling this out, they also said, well, listen, it won't be mandated for everyone. It won't be mandated for the average person. But if you don't get on it, it'll be hard to do anything in life. You'll basically be left out of all public services. You'll be left out of the banking system, out of the job market. So basically that's coercion. And we're going to get back into that further later on in the video, because I have some things that relate to that to a great degree. But let's get into some more of this. So as they bring in this digital ID and they're enforcing it in the UK, they also have these private companies that are doing the same thing. Trip.com plans digital ID pilot using Google and Apple wallets. And we're going to talk a little bit more about Apple later as well, because we have things from apple.com on the digital ID. But this is how they are starting to coerce people into this system, much like Visa and MasterCard. You don't have to have a Visa and MasterCard. It's not mandated, but it's hard to do anything in life outside of using it if you go to big cities today in the West. Again, part of the demoralization, part of the normalization, part of the destruction of the monetary system in order to shift into the new one. Now, King Charles said something else very interesting, which plays directly into this and into what some of the things I just said. It's 1 minute and 5 seconds. It's during the same King's speech. Let's hear what he says.
An increasingly dangerous and volatile world threatens the United Kingdom.
Who caused the danger?
With the conflict in the Middle East only the most recent example.
Your friends caused that.
Every element of the nation's energy, defense, and economic security will be tested.
See, all the things that it's a modus operandi cause all these problems, create all these hazards with those systems and then come in with a solution. The new digital system, the rationing system. Here's your food rations that's injected with a bunch of poisons, and if you don't have it, if you don't have a good score, if you don't rat out your neighbor, you won't be able to get this food. And also, if you want the food for yourself and your family, take this injection.
My government will respond to this world with strength and aim to create a country that is fair for all. My ministers will take decisions that protect the energy, defence and economic security of the United Kingdom for the long term.
So wait a second. So that I want to rewind that for all.
That is fair for all.
Fair for all. Fair for all. So fair for all as in a collective, not individually, I'm sure.
My ministers will take decisions that protect the energy, defence and economic security of the United Kingdom for the long term.
Economic security.
They will defend the British values of decency, tolerance and respect for difference
there it is,
under our common flag. And they will harness the potential of the pride felt across this country for its communities.
Tolerate the downfall of your civilization is what they're telling you, because if you don't tolerate, you're going to be, unfortunately, very low on the totem pole when it comes to that digital ID social credit system.
My government will take urgent action to tackle anti-Semitism and ensure all communities feel safe.
There it is, my friends. There it is. Tackle anti-Semitism. It's a big issue today. Our friends in the Middle East are causing these wars, which means that we can come in with these security agendas and digital IDs. But by the way, if you criticize those people, then you're anti-Semites, and therefore we can crack down on you with this digital ID and stop you from being able to eat food. This is the agenda, my friends. This is exactly what I've been warning of. It's a problem, reaction, solution, repeat, the Hegelian dialectic for eternity. And he's laying it out right there. And the first attack on free speech is your speech. The second will be your thought process, your food, and the restriction of your thoughts, essentially, down to the detail. If you have ideas that are different from the states, I mean, this is what the United Nations Pact for the Future was about to some degree. 193 countries signed on to it, including yours, and it said they could shut down your bank account and shut down your ability to eat food and everything based on food rations, social credit, digital IDs. If you criticize the government or criticize the narratives of the government, say you don't believe in the climate change agenda, or you don't believe in the pandemic agendas, or if you don't believe in, forcing 15-minute cities, well, you're against the social construct. Therefore, we can shut you down and we could stop you from accessing your money. And it's already happening. There's a lot of people in the United States and Canada who've had their banks shut down and their money seized. We're not just talking about the truckers in Canada who had their bank accounts shut down, which was awful and insane and terroristic, really, on the part of the banking cartel. But we've also had countless people who say things online who've had their banks shut down and then they can't access any of the money they already had in the bank. So this is something that is obviously creeping up, and that is kind of, again, it starts with censorship of your words. Then it gets to your thoughts and your ideas, your belief systems. I mean, they're arresting people for praying in many parts of the world, including the UK. Absolutely insane. And strictly only people that are Christian that are praying. Now, moving on here, U.S. could ask foreign tourists for 5-year social media history before entry. As I've talked about, this is social credit. This is happening in the United States, and all the countries in the world are all involved in this same rollout in one way or another, whether it be through climate change initiatives, pandemic initiatives, whether it be through hate speech on this side, oh, well, they're transphobes or they're, racist, or if it's on the other side through biometrics and digital IDs for migrants and mass migration and free speech issues like how dare they use hate speech against Israelis. That must be anti-Semitic. It's how they frame it. And of course, under the guise of national security. So this came out in December, and it's a real thing, and they really are pushing it, and they want people from outside of the United States to show 5 years of social media history to enter the country, plus 10 years of email history, plus photo biometrics, or photo metadata, rather, plus your biometrics, iris scans, etc. And that's all happening simultaneously. That is not a coincidence. Trump order to require banks to collect citizenship info in process, Besant says. Here's what to know. I did a video on this with our friend Mark Gonzalez, which you could check out previously. Let me see. Bank surveillance and digital IDs, I think the video is called, which we did about 12 days ago. I urge people to check out that video on Rumble and BitChute at World Alternative Media. Highly recommend it because, again, these are things that directly affect you and your money and all these things that you depend on. Unfortunately, people are very dependent on this system. So that's out of Time magazine. They again do this under the guise of stopping mass migration. Interesting how they're doing this. They create the problem, then they come in as a solution because people they know that would usually be against all this stuff would be in favor of it because they don't like mass migration. But it is one big scripted event. It's one big circular construct that they've built in order to excuse, as a pretext, bring in this digital slave system, as 63 central banks are implementing Basel III, which includes the widespread practice of bail-ins to rescue failing banks. This came out in October of 2024. September of 2024 was when the United Nations Pact for the Future was signed. So all around the same time, and they built this system, and they built it because they plan to use it. Bail-ins mean they could just take your money out of the bank and not give it back. And the FDIC, Federal Depositor Insurance Corporation, is bankrupt. They cannot pay back the money they take from you. They have like 1% of the money in as far as liquidity goes. So this is a disaster waiting to happen, and it's as soon as people recognize this, the dominoes will fall. Right now, it's all based on faulty faith, misled faith. Again, 63 central banks are implementing this. It was in the Canadian budget years ago. And again, they've done it in Cyprus. Now, this is on a bigger scale. 63 central banks. So as we're looking at all these security protocols in the banks, we see the banks buying up each other, the bigger banks buying up the smaller ones, which are bankrupt. This is the problem, reaction, solution, repeat of the banking system. So we have the government, we have the banking system. The banking system will do it in the sense where they say, well, we're all collapsing. The way to keep you secure is giving you credits. It's the same thing that they did with fiat from the gold standard. Well, we don't have the gold that we say we owe you, so therefore we're going to default on that and then give you credit, debt, and basically say, hey, these fake numbers are real because, we have this pact with Saudi Arabia, which no longer exists, by the way. The petrodollar plan collapsed back in 2024. So it's basically expired. This is very, very dangerous. Now, again, that's happening as Canada's rolling out social credit systems, citizen bank accounts linked to obedience scores. I've talked about that quite a while ago. And, of course, we have this new data protection bill in the UK expands ability of banks and corporations to surveil customers. Again, that bank surveillance. So now we have the US doing this. We have Canada doing this. We have the UK doing this. And they say, oh, they're all different. Well, let me tell you something. When we hear them say at the World Economic Forum that we have Howard Lutnick, who, of course, worked with Epstein, which means he worked with Mossad to some degree, and somehow isn't fired despite all the scandals. When he says Trump is bringing down the world order, the old world order, and people go, good, he's bringing down globalism. Well, let's stop and think about this for a second. It's the old world order. You need to bring down the old one to bring in the new one. And everything that he's doing is the same as what Mark Carney in Canada is doing, the Prime Minister of Canada, or what Keir Starmer in the UK is talking about, or what Larry Fink at BlackRock is pushing as he tries to take over ports worldwide at the same time as a Strait of Hormuz crisis, at the same time as a Panama Canal crisis, and you will own nothing and you'll be happy, basically, is what they're saying. The Great Reset agenda goal. Mark Carney said last year, which I reported on, and I urge people to check out my video on that. It might not even be last year. It might be this year. So many things have happened. I think it might be this year. It's only May. It feels like we've been through 5 years since January. But anyway, Mark Carney said that he was bringing in a new world order with the $1 trillion initiative and that he has with China, which, by the way, Canada isn't the only one. The UK has this big initiative with China. The United States, as I speak, is making up this major initiative. It's all fake. China was propped up as a guinea pig state for technocracy by the Trilateral Commission back in the 70s. Kissinger saved it from a starvation event to bring it into the fold of the New World Order back in the early 70s, a meeting with Mao. So what Mark Carney said, and I did a step-by-step video that you could check out about Canada's New World Order, Mark Carney said the way that he describes the New World Order is that financial, medicine, health, food, water, shelter, all markets, everything will be under one roof of a digital system. That is a New World Order. Ursula von der Leyen, the head of the president of the European Commission, she said herself at the World Economic Forum this year that she invoked 1971 when Nixon took the United States off the gold standard after President Charles de Gaulle of France came to the New York port and New York Harbor and demanded his gold back. The U.S. didn't have the gold, so they went onto the off the gold standard onto the fiat system, gave France all this debt, just like they're doing to you now. And that leads into what Ursula von der Leyen said was the New World Order. And now she says it's the end of that order and the introduction of a new world order when we have similar currency shifts. So what we have right now is Macron demanding the gold back from the U.S. right now as they shift into the digital system. This is the New World Order. It's what Mark Carney is talking about, and it's also what Larry Fink has talked about to a great degree many times, many years in a row at the World Economic Forum. Now he's one of the people running the World Economic Forum on how they bring in the reset is to bring everything under one umbrella. It's what Elon Musk is saying he wants with X, which is owned by XAI, which is, of course, doing contracts with the Pentagon. It's a quasi-private corporation. And on top of that, they have X money where they want that to be the money for everything. Doesn't need to be a CBDC. It could just be a private corporation like Visa and MasterCard. Another thing that I'm going to get into. There's so many things here. I'm trying not to juggle it too much here. But now we have this data protection bill with bank surveillance. We have Canada rolling out social credit scores. We have the restrictions on bank accounts and the citizenship collection, the information collection. We have the 63 central banks bringing in Basel III. And we have a UK government nudge unit working with banks to implement social credit system disguised as carbon guilt trip tracker. I first reported on this in 2022. It's been happening now for 4 years. And it's being pushed by Professor Suzanne Michie, who was hugely responsible for the propaganda around the UK regarding COVID. So, again, we see a lot of familiar faces here. Of course, the World Economic Forum said themselves on their page in 2022 called My Carbon on their website that COVID was just a litmus test for compliance to bring in 15-minute cities, digital IDs, and technocracy in general. Meanwhile, we have, as of today, AI-powered bank founded by Peter Thiel, protege, wants to replace humans with code. Again, the transhumanist agenda starts there, where your money is sitting. Augustus Bank, named after the Roman emperor, revealed earlier this week that it had received conditional approval from the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, or OCC. That made Ferdinand Dabbits the youngest CEO to receive a conditional federal bank charter in more than 100 years. Again, it's not really him. He is a puppet. He is clearly working directly with people like Peter Thiel and Palantir, who are killing people with drones, AI-powered drones, alongside Alex Karp and all these people, absolute scumbags, who also all say the new system, the New World Order, will be a financial system that controls all aspects of life. Funny how all these technocrats have the same agenda, because it's a scripted agenda that goes back 100+ years. We have this that I reported on 3 years ago. BBC said Kenya's Ojiek people are being evicted for carbon credits. It's a tribe that has been starved out because they didn't want to use carbon credits. We have Bill Gates and the UN impose their digital IDs on Sierra Leoneans. In Sierra Leone, you can't have a bank account, you can't have a job, you can't drive a car, you can't do anything without this digital ID. This is already in place, and they've been testing it in the places that they felt were least likely. So people say, oh, well, it'll never happen in Mexico because Mexicans use mostly cash. I lived in Mexico for 6 years. You're right, but wrong at the same time. Most Americans use cash up into the 90s, and now it's mostly cashless. Maybe they're a bit behind, but they will force people under emergency orders into the system when they go after the gas stations, when they go after all these things in Mexico where they say you need a digital ID for. You need one now for a phone number, which is coming in next month. So again, yes, it's unlikely in the view of how things are today, but it only takes a little nudge by a major public event to force people into this under the guise of security, national security, and safety. So they're doing it in Mexico. They're doing it across the board. You need QR codes to get into places, some towns in Canada, including in Quebec. I mean, this is happening. And Sierra Leone is one of those places that you wouldn't expect for them to go cashless. But they have been able to do it. Again, one of the first places they used as a guinea pig was actually India, where Modi gave every homeless person a bank account about a decade ago, which I reported on at the time. I was called crazy back in, 2015, 2016, might have been even 2014, I don't know, when I was talking about the Australians working with the Chinese to create their technocratic cashless system as they demonetize cash, at the same time as India gives people bank accounts under the guise of helping the homeless, giving them a little bit of cash in that bank account. Oh, I shouldn't say cash, because they wanted to confiscate the gold there in the country that has most prevalence probably in the world for gold. It's a cultural thing. And they went after it big time. And while it failed to some degree, it worked in a lot of ways because it actually did make things more digital in India. And again, these are the places that are least likely to do it. That's why they test it in those places first. Sierra Leone is a great example. Now, moving on, UN and Bill Gates, launch 50 in 5 global digital infrastructure plans. This is the move back in 2023 to, in 5 years, so now in 2 years or 2.5 years, bring in this system of digital IDs, digital public infrastructure around the world. That 50 countries will be doing this. And by the way, it's on cue. It's exactly where we're at right now. We have about 2.5 years left until it's finalized. This article is from 2.5 years ago. So yeah, Kit Knightley posted at the time, and it is 100% an interoperable system connecting all levels of government, food, water, shelter, everything. And we're going to go into how some of this is happening right now. People ask, where is that data going to be stored? Well, we've done some videos on this recently with Kevin O'Leary, but we'll get into that in a moment. ACLU reports digital driver's licenses threaten to create a great internet lockdown. 2 trends threaten the creation of a bureaucratic wall between Americans and the information they have a right to access to. Well, what we're talking about here in many ways is also not just the digital IDs that they're enforcing for licenses. They're already enforcing this in many states, including Texas, but of course, Missouri is one of the ones that I have eyes on the most. Missouri bill requiring age checks on adult sites heads to governor. This is back, this is today. As a couple months ago in December, Missouri's age verification law takes effect. Some skeptic of digital identification. So I kind of mixed up these articles, but the point is today this is going to the governor. Now, one of the things that this does, and it's House Bill 1839 in Missouri, is that it says, okay, well, children won't be able to watch pornography without showing, proof of being an adult, which most people would go like, okay, good. We don't want kids watching that stuff. But first of all, where's the parenting? Society pushes this stuff on kids. They push sexualization. They push alcohol. They push, all these dangerous foods that hurt them. And then they pretend to be there for their health, their mental health, and their innocence, which is complete nonsense, only when it matters for them to bring in a surveillance system. It's a Trojan horse for everyone to have to show information to access certain sites. It starts with pornography, sure. It will be an avalanche into every other aspect of internet usage. Obama pushed back in 2009 an internet ID. Trump is now pushing this. DeSantis is pushing this. It's just across the board. It's being accepted by both sides under different pretexts. The pretenses for these things vary greatly. Meanwhile, Apple is introducing a digital ID, a new way to create and present an ID in an Apple Wallet. Digital ID offers a secure and private way for users to create an ID in Apple Wallet using information from their U.S. passport and present their ID with iPhone or Apple Watch. Again, This tracking device wants that information so that you can utilize AI to determine whether you are or are not allowed to do certain things or buy certain things in the future, my friends, under the social credit system. And this is done privately, so people cannot say this is unconstitutional because people willingly do it under the guise of convenience. And tyranny comes under the guise of convenience. This is how it happens. So, again, when people say, oh, it's going to be CBDCs, and of course Ray Dalio has said that there will be no privacy CBDCs on the way, and that's true in many countries in the world. Many countries are just going to adopt, like with Visa and MasterCard, like I mentioned earlier, a system that is based in, convenience. If you want to do things, you have to use X money in the future, for example, or Tether, or, one of these offshoots from XRP run through the Clinton Foundation and the World Economic Forum. This is very dangerous. I've been talking about this for, 20 years, but it's not necessarily a central bank digital currency. It could just be through Apple ID or through X money. And Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Sam Altman, and others are all saying that AI is going to destroy the workforce and destroy humanity, though Elon's one of the number one people working on it. But meanwhile, they're all saying, even though they claim to be enemies, Elon Musk, Sam Altman, and Bill Gates, they all say, but don't worry, there will be UBI, Universal Basic Income, which is exactly what Mark Carney was pushing with the New World Order speech to some degree. It's exactly what the World Economic Forum is pushing, by the way, to the umpth degree. It's that we will destroy civilization with AI, but don't worry, you will be able to use Universal Basic Income, which is essentially them saying exactly what Yuval Noah Harari said years ago, and this is a direct quote, that he dreams of a world where people are placated on drugs, playing video games, sitting at home without a job, using credits, digital credits. This is exactly what the World Economic Forum is pushing, and they are in the midst of doing this right now. And how do they operate that system? Digital IDs. They need digital IDs to be able to regulate that system. At the same time as they're rolling out social credit scores. At the same time as they're rolling out 50-minute cities. They're shutting down roads. They're concreting it over. They're putting little sitting areas and benches everywhere because it looks nice, and it's so nice for the neighborhood to be able to get together and sit together. And then they put all the stores and all the conveniences around you, so why would you ever leave your neighborhood? And then they make flight prices almost impossible and cause immigration issues as well, plus tariffs, all this kind of stuff, and the Strait of Hormuz and the fuel shortages, fertilizer shortages. So now we have food shortages, and we have, of course, extremely high prices on top of the already existing inflation, so no one can fly anywhere. Why would you? With the UK saying by 2029 they want to ban flying and ban eating meat. I mean, what? That is an actual plan with their net zero agenda, which is also legally pushed through the United Nations Pact for the Future. Again, something 193 countries signed on to. So everyone's stuck in their little 15-minute cities. I saw this myself in Oxford. They have tracking in the sidewalk. Every step you take, they can track where you've been walking. They've been using that for years at red lights in big cities, going back, I think, to the 90s, where they sense whether people are at the red light or not, so it speeds up the red light. That's a thing that I know they put in because, I've seen it myself being installed when I was doing construction. So, again, these things are already technically in place. A surveillance system is already technically in place. They just need to up the ante a little bit, force people into the ID system. They already have facial recognition. Trump just extended FISA 702, which allows warrantless spying on all Americans. It also leads to warrantless arrests under the National Defense Authorization Act, which also includes a draft and food rationing. Funny how all that works out. Oh, but he's winning. He's bringing us freedom and peace while bombing more countries than any president in history in 1 year. Now, with all that said, we also have the surveillance tech being put up all over the United States on the interstate system with facial recognition and license plate readers, with AI determining if people seem suspicious for driving in a different direction than they did yesterday. Because routine, my friends, you all have to be on the same routine every day. Wake up, go to sleep. Wake up, go to sleep. Like it's the same system of technocracy that we see in movies like Metropolis from 1927, I believe. 1926 or 1927. A brilliant film, by the way. Silent film. sci-fi movie. Absolutely incredible. It's a creation of a technocratic system where people are basically they are told to grind the gears of the machine. They become the blood of the machine, and when they don't have use anymore, they are sacrificed in the mouth of a giant statue of Moloch. Yeah. And people are brought to support this insanity by, there's this one woman that is pushing for a revolution against this machine, and everyone loves her. And then they replace her with a robot that looks exactly like her, a clone, which they create with a giant a giant pentagram behind her. And she misleads everyone and says, we're leading the revolution, but this is good and that's bad, and leads them all up the stairs into the mouth of Moloch to die. Does it sound familiar? It's what we see with mainstream alternative media, the people that are supposed to be helping bring in the revolution. By revolution, I mean the revolution of individualism and freedom, self-responsibility, the basis of what humanity is in the first place, instead of sacrificing us to the transhumanist machine. I urge people to watch Metropolis if you've never watched it. It's absolutely incredible. Make sure you get the longer version. Don't waste your time on the one that has the music by Freddie Mercury and all that, because it's clipped up and there's a lot missing from it. Anyway, there's one more thing I wanted to mention. Where are they storing all this information? How are they going to do this? How is it possible? And it's going to use up all this water. How is that even possible? Well, Kevin O'Leary is building a 62 square mile data center in Utah, which I reported on recently. And I urge people to check out my video on that, Expose the Data Center Agenda, over on Rumble and BitChute at World Alternative Media. Incredibly important, I think, for people to dig into. It's a $100 billion AI data center. It will use like double the amount of the state's water and electricity. It's atrocious what's happening. They are using eminent domain to take over everyone's properties in the area where it's being built. They're just taking people's homes from them. So no property rights. So I don't know where the conservatives and libertarians that support Trump are on this suddenly, where it's like, oh, we're just taking your house. We're just taking your house, and we're just going to build a giant AI data center for mass surveillance. And it's also going to use up so many of the resources that we're going to have to ration resources to you. How convenient. It all works exactly by the plan of the technocrats going back over 100 years to force us into scarcity, to out of desperation, because people are dependent on everything, dependent on grocery stores, dependent on banks, etc., dependent on the grid. They'll be forced to accept the system and even bow and support the system in order to get credit so that they can get their rations, more rations than their neighbor, under this fascio-communist, Marxist technocracy. And yes, those things do go together at their umpth degree of collectivism. So we will then have, and we're seeing 3,500 of these data centers being built across the board. We see this in Canada and Alberta. Kevin O'Leary has another one. There's a bunch in British Columbia. There are some in Winnipeg. And they're also putting mini data centers they want by mandate on your home to harvest electricity and resources from you. You are becoming the metaphorical blood that the mosquito, which would be the machine, sucks. We're not building machines to help us anymore. The machines are using us to thrive and grow and become more powerful than us, and then replace us. And it's one big satanic ritual. It's literally the replacement of humanity. It's a book of Revelation to a great degree. It is replacing humanity with machine, full-fledged transhumanism. It starts with the trans agenda, my friends, which is minor compared to the height of this AI system, which is without empathy. It's the most godless creation that could be. It is essentially a Tower of Babel in itself as well. And we are being harvested on the farm for this international technocracy. So it might just be a passing phrase by King Charles, the digital ID. It's much bigger than that, as I hope you've seen from this video. And again, people always ask, okay, but what are the solutions? And the solutions, most people don't want the solutions because they're not easy. It's not like, oh, vote for that person or go protest or say no. It's not easy like that. They create disasters from weather to fake pandemics to, wars to create this system. They destroy the food supply on purpose. 73-year cattle head shortage, record cattle head shortage. There's 1 billion people back in 1953. There is now 8 to 11 billion. They're not entirely sure. So it's 8 to 11 times worse than back then. And on top of that shortage, they destroy fertilizer. They bring up the gas prices. Trump said himself on video the other day, and I'm going to be doing another video eventually talking about this, but he said on video he does not care about the financial problems of Americans because he's mostly focused on Iran. What a thing to say. And that is a real quote. You could actually go and check out on my X account at World Alt Media, where I shared that quote from the press conference. But anyway, absolutely insane. We are getting to the point where they don't even care about ingratiating us anymore. They're just like, let's destroy everything. And then they have to accept our solution, which we've already built, because they haven't built any solutions yet, because they don't want any solutions, because they'd rather just complain. And the real solutions are individualism, self-sustainability, freedom. Those things are synonymous with humanity itself. We must not be dependent on things. We must individually withdraw from the banking system to the most degree that you can. Obviously not entirely, but to the most degree that you can. We need to withdraw from being dependent on grocery stores. We need to have storable foods. We need food, water, shelter, self-defense. You're not gathering things for the toughest guy on the block. Gold and silver as wealth insurance, in my opinion. Privacy coins, because we are in a digital system, so we could use encrypted privacy oriented money that they cannot track and trace, so that you can get things outside of the system that allows you on your digital wallet to have. Again, this is the real solution. And people go, well, that's both simplistic and difficult. It's easier said than done. Everything on earth is easier said than done, other than thinking. Now, again, is it a fix-all? No. But, I mean, we're already years too late to be really talking about solutions, but we still have opportunities to prolong our sustainability in the face of the reset, which comes down to people not being dependent on that grid, not being dependent on that grocery store to as much degree as we possibly can, so that when they shut it down, you're not starving. You are able to sustain yourself and your family for a few months, which in that time, things will get pretty crazy. And there's a chance that with the hubris of the Tower of Babel, as they've said in the story, when they grow to the stars, it all collapses under its own weight, its own arrogance. That Tower of Babel might actually only last about a year or two. Maybe less, maybe more. But that system of complete insane technocracy, it's a sacrifice. A lot of people are going to die. People are going to be forced into the enslavement of that digital system. But if you are prepared to a great degree, you will not succumb to the rations, to the injections, to the poisons, to the ratting on your neighbor, to the gulags, all these things. You as an individual can opt out of the system, because again, they will say it's not mandated because that's unconstitutional, but under emergencies will say that if you don't have this, you cannot access these things. Just like if you don't wear a mask, you can't go into that store or business. Just like they use that as a litmus test, as I mentioned, which the World Economic Forum said themselves they did. Or Visa and MasterCard. Well, if you don't have Visa or MasterCard, you can't buy anything at this store. It's just convenience. Tyranny comes under the guise of convenience. And that is why it's important to have the assets in your hands necessary to prolong your sustainability versus this reset. So I'm going to close this off by saying, once again, it's a no-brainer, my friends. Using code WAM, W-A-M, you'll get 25% off plus free shipping on your order at heavensharvest.com/WAM, W-A-M. Again, it's in the description of the video. For long-term storable foods that are non-GMO, there's organic kits, heirloom seeds, water filtration and storage, and books on how to get started. Really high quality stuff. Freeze-dried food, of course, as well. Organic stuff. And by the way, large serving sizes, you're already beating inflation over it now. So again, highly recommend people get on this ASAP, ASAP, ASAP. If you haven't yet already, or you have a bucket or two or three, Get more. Please stock up. The more you have, the more you're able to sustain yourself. I make barely anything off of any of this right now. I mean, I've been promoting Storable Food long before I ever had an affiliate with them, but I found this, and I found that this was a way to give you guys a deal at the same time as supporting Wham. But the most important thing is that you guys can sustain yourself. So I barely make any sales on this anymore these days. It's more about, I continue shouting from mountaintops because I could be making money on promotions and sponsorships. I'm not doing that. I want people to have this because I find it extremely important as a real-world solution. Food was the world's first currency. We also have firstnationalbullion.com/schedule-consult/ has to be that exact link, not a shortened one. It's in the description of the video. There you can get out of that banking system to the greatest degree possible, outside of the digital ID system, outside of the CBDC system. There you can buy physical gold, silver, platinum, or palladium, hold it in your hands, put it in a vault, or put it in an IRA outside of the traditional IRA system. And again, you can schedule an appointment for a free consultation with our friend, Mark Gonzalez, and also get a complimentary investors package there. Let him know in the comments that you found him at World Alternative Media, or WAM, W-A-M. Again, we have lots of videos with him on what is happening. Major recession indicator, we did a video on with him. Insane inflation and debt soars. We did a video called Bank Surveillance and Digital IDs. Again, go check that out on our channel. We've been working with Mark for years. He's awake, aware, and has been doing this for a long time. Banks are going bankrupt. There's inflation. There's a digital system. All more reason to protect yourself. Now, I mentioned earlier, of course, Medicamentum Authentica, Shillegit. Really cool stuff. Again, if you use code WAM10, W-A-M-10, you will get 10% off. And again, I'm really a big fan of this. We're talking about ethically sourced and harvested at 16,000 plus feet in the Himalayas. It's great for a range of physical, cognitive, and sexual benefits. It's great for de-aging. And it's just a really cool thing to be able to have where you know that it's been tested for the toxic stuff, heavy metals, fillers, etc. Because it's Dr. Andrew Kaufman, and it's not a lot of companies actually go through the effort of doing the full-scale testing. You also get a bonus pre-prepping protocol to accelerate and amplify your results. 35-day try it, feel it, love it guarantee, my friends. Again, I urge people to check that out in the description. I mentioned earlier, I do have a box of it right here, and I just got it from Dr. Kaufman a couple days ago in the mail, and I'm really excited about it because this is... And it's just so well made. I wish I had another hand. I need to get an arm for the microphone really badly. Don't have the money for it. But it's really cool. It's the box itself. I showed you at the beginning. It has a little drawer you can pull out. It's really high quality down to the box, which is always a good sign. Okay. Anyway, as I close it off, we also have ways that you can help support us. So we need help more now than ever. This GoGetFunding.com campaign is many, many years old. It's more than half a decade old. But you guys have helped keep it up and running and keep us up and running with it for about, those 5 or 6 years that this has been going. And we could not survive without you. So I just want to thank everyone who has helped support us in the past. You guys are absolutely amazing. We still need help because it's an ongoing effort to keep us alive because they don't want us to be alive. And by they, I mean they, them, those who should not be, those that are running the algorithms at these sites, making sure that we cannot be seen because we are talking real alternative information that you cannot find elsewhere or the explanations which you cannot find elsewhere because most alternative medias want you to stay within that system and perpetuate with fear and apologism to the state. I refuse. I rebuke that. I will not support that. And that's why we are not allowed to be seen. We have GoGetFunding.com, Patreon, Subscribestar. If you pledge $4.99 a month or more, you'll get exclusive content over on Patreon and Subscribestar. We have a PayPal address, ancientwonderstelevision@gmail.com. We have a Bitcoin address that you could scan on the screen here or check out in the description below in text form. We also have a Cointree link with a bunch of different cryptocurrencies that you could donate in if you please, including privacy coins. And of course, we have a Teespring store with a bunch of merchandise that helps support us as well. We appreciate everyone watching. We are on Telegram. We're on Rumble, BitChute, Odyssey, Brighteon, at World Alternative Media. We're on Hive, Steemit, and Vigilante.tv at Josh Sigurdson, and on the Bad Guys TikTok and Instagram, World Alternative Media, Twitter and Getter at World Alt Media, and all the major podcast platforms except for Spotify, where, of course, we are banned. Hit that like button, share on social media, hit the notification bell, and hit subscribe if you have not yet already. And as always, my friends, and this is what it's all about, live freely, live by example. This is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.